Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on this webinar today. All of you all have, it is great to see we have this poll running, and I can see that about 75% of people actually have a donor list. So that's fantastic. I think that's a great starting point for us to have this conversation about how do we increase this donor list. That's what really this conversation is going to be. How do you identify new donors? And how do you increase this donor list? And we will be talking more about very organic forms of increasing. Obviously there is advertisements that you can do, events that you can run, paid events, non-free events, and you can get more donors to that. But we are going to talk more about just getting, how can you get more donors from your networks itself, and how do you identify and how can you get that to happen? So, so to begin, I'm just going to share my screen and we will start with our presentation. So I think you'd be able to see my screen now.
Yes, Dhaval, you are able to.
Great. So we call it Dana Circle, the giving circle. And our aim is to help you create your own Dana Circle today, your own donor list. Right? 1 second. So we're going to create, like I said, a donor list of people who your organizations know, who other people in your organization know, right? Just give me 1 second. Sorry. Yeah, so we're going to create a donor list of people your organization know, and how can you create, a really big donor list, right? So that's the goal of today's webinar. So let me ask you first, if someone asks you how many donors your organization would have, how many names could you come up with? Is it 25 to 50? Is it 100? Is it 500? And let's just do a poll to understand that. How many names can you come up with as part of your donor list? Or how many donors do you actually have on your donor list? Let's understand that. So I'm sharing a poll with everyone. We'll take 2 minutes for everyone to respond. We'll give another 10 seconds for people to finish responding if they're trying to figure out, trying to call up their colleagues to understand what that list is. Let's just take a bit of time and give them that time to figure it out. Yeah, the last 5 seconds. Okay, so here we are. Very interesting. And I'm going to share these results with you as well. We have just one organization which has a donor list of more than 1,000 people. Just one organization in this webinar, right? And I believe that each one of y'all can actually have a donor list of at least 5,000 donors. When I'm saying not donors, I mean both donors as well as potential donors. And that's what this webinar is going to try and accomplish, is to help you understand how you can have a list of at least 5,000 potential donors. Most of us seem to be having lists of less than 500 donors. And I think that is something to really work on to get up to a list size of at least 5,000 donors. So not only are we going to talk about, talk about how that you can do that, we're also having two NGOs who are going to tell us their experience of creating a donor list in this manner and what that has led to and how that has helped them. Right. So let us, so we'll go into that. So I think that if this is the list size that we're talking about, like we said, if you think it's 25, 50, 100, really the wrong list size. Like I said, we all believe that this is 5,000 donors is what we can actually get to. Because your circle is far bigger than what you actually think it is. Your network is far bigger than what you think it is. And the key is, are you leveraging that network? That is the most important thing. Right? So let us talk about what this network is. So we define this in terms of circles, right? As we said, we think of it as Dana circle, your giving circles. And what are these two circles? So the first circle, the first set of people you could reach out to, your board members, right? Most importantly, you have about anywhere between 5 to 10 board members. They are the people to reach out to. Are you asking them for donations? Are they there in your donor list? Remember, this donor list is not just about asking for donations. It is also about sending updates. And that's very important for board members to know what those updates are. Staff, right? You have a staff, maybe 50 people that you could reach out to. They are potential donors. Donors who have donated to you over the last 5 years. Have you reached out into your tally system, into your Excel sheets and made sure that every donor's contact details you have pulled out and created a list with it? Volunteers, right? Again, volunteers can be donors. Volunteers should get updates about the organization. So volunteers should be part of this list. Vendors and service providers. How many of you have actually gone out to your banking, your account manager at your bank and said, hey, you should be a potential donor? How many of you have reached out to various vendors and suppliers who provide you with goods and services? Your accountant, your CA, they should also be part of your donor list, right? They're all potential donors. Remember, everyone can be a potential donor. A slightly larger network is available to you on many of you all have social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and that's another place where you can get donors. So have you reached out to donors out there? That's another place to go. Beneficiaries or alumni is how I would put it. Past beneficiaries who have benefited through your programs. They may now be earning a good livelihood. They may be earning a good income. Have you reached out to them to say, why don't you donate? Right? People who have subscribed to your newsletter blog, many times we have this subscription thing on our website, but we've somehow not integrated it with our donor list. And when I say donor list, again, I'm trying to make that point. It's both a donor list as well as a potential donor list. So people who have subscribed to a newsletter, your blog, are other kinds of people that you could have as part of this thing. CSR Spox, right? Not only can they give CSR money, but individually, each of them are also donors. Have you reached out to them? That's your first circle. Note this down. Note who your first circle is. What's your second circle? Your second circle is friends and families of everyone who was the first circle, basically, right? So friends and families of board members, school and college batchmates, individually for each one of you, from your staff, they should also be making this list. Neighbors, people of other groups that are around. Your phone book is the richest source of contacts, right? Can you, export your phone list and provide that contact list? Friends and relatives of your staff, friends and colleagues of CSR, you should be asking Like you're asking board members for referrals, you can ask other people also for referrals. Personal followers, and this is more true for founders, senior management in an NGO, or it could be anybody in the organization. Even your personal followers on Facebook, Twitter are places from which you can have donors. Families and colleagues of beneficiaries, your alumni can refer, alumni can provide inputs. Have you thought about that? One of the organizations that we are aware of started getting donations from alumni about 5 years back. Today, about 1/3 of all donations to that organization come from alumni. And this is a 10 crore budget organization, right? So it's a fairly big organization. 1/3 of its donations today are coming from alumni. It took them only 5 years to get here, right? But the more important thing is they made a start. Can you think of reaching out to your beneficiaries? Are your beneficiaries able to donate to you? Again, everything may not apply to everyone. Please take what you think applies to you. People you meet, off contacts, chances, conferences, seminars, places you go, anyone you come in touch with. I just had a meeting 3 days back with one NGO, and the next day I got a mailer from them, right? I was very impressed. I'm like, this is like a one-on-one meeting I had with them. They took my email ID and sent me a mailer also. I think the epitome of efficiency in ensuring a donor list, right? I loved it. I think, can you create that atmosphere? I think people don't mind it. People appreciate that you are able to do these things. And after the second level, you have your third circle, your fourth circle, your fifth circle, endless circles. If you can keep thinking about how you can get references from people who are part of your first and second circles, right? So this is more, as you know, in Facebook, we have friends of friends and friends of friends. How can you reach out and get more people to give? And that's the list that you can make. So each of these, like some of them are obviously donors, but many of them are just potential donors. So now if I have to ask you, how many potential donors do you have? And how many donors do you think you can collect based on what we've just discussed? What do you think that number is? Let's get another poll going. What is the number that you think you can get your donors to be? Some people yet not convinced, yet think it's only going to be less than 500. Don't think that they can get more donors. This is not what your donor list is. This is how many donors you think you can get based on what we've just discussed. Okay. So at least I'm glad to see that there are more people now who believe that they can get at least more than 1,000 donors. We have about 40% of people who think they can get more than 1,000 donors. I just given a couple of seconds to you to close this poll. So we have about 40% of donors who actually believe they can get more than 1,000 donors. Now remember, this is just each one of you doing this exercise. If all the founders, if all the senior management of an organization, indeed, if all the team members of an organization also do this activity of noting down for each of the segments that I put down earlier, who are those contacts, actually putting that down very specifically, I think you will see a large number of potential donors coming from contacts within your team itself. Right? So I think that is something that you'd want to consider and say, how can we get all these donors, and how many, and the list that can come out as a result of this. Right? So the most important thing is it's important to create a list which has the following details, right? This is the bare minimum that your list should have, because a donor list is a list which you use to contact your donor. So obviously you will contact using an email or a phone number to begin with. So maybe you want to at least put down name, email ID, and phone number. I think these are three important things. If you can even just have this much, that would be good enough. Uh, Additionally, you may have how do you know the person, what kind of contact it is, from whom the contact came, where the contact came from. Could be additional elements in your list. But at the very basic level, what you do want to have is name, email ID, and phone number. So now you're probably wondering that, how do I collect all this data? And do I need to maybe call each person, look at each person's data and actually write it manually, maybe copy paste from different sources? So here we have some very simple tips and tricks for you, which allow you to get this data much more easily, right? So first of all, you have on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, many of you all have LinkedIn accounts, right? So on LinkedIn, you have a very easy way actually of ensuring that you can download your network along with their email ID list. So you just go to My Network, Connections, and there you have something called Manage Synced and Imported Contacts and Export Contacts. And this will give you, in Excel, CSV format, all their entire network with name and email ID, right? So it becomes a very simple way for you to actually get a list. So while this looks very daunting, some of this is there are tools which are now available to help you do that. Another such tip is with Google. You can also download all this data from your Gmail contacts. Many of you all use Gmail personally as well as with the organization. And Gmail provides a way to download all your contacts. So in that you go to contacts and there's a simple export, which allows you to download all contacts. Then many times people tell us, how do we keep getting this information and feeding it to our mailing system? So there's a tool called Zapier, a little bit more technical. This is more for the little bit more technologically advanced folks. There's a tool called Zapier, which allows you to link up your Gmail account with, for example, Mailjet, with MailChimp, and allows you to export the list into one of these softwares so that you can have a continuous list available to you. So we have these links and we'll share this presentation. Many of you all may be having this presentation. So anyway, we'll share it at the end of the session so you all can explore this. But two simple ways, remember, you have LinkedIn, you have Gmail, you can simply download the contacts. Even from your phone, it is possible to download contacts. Each phone is slightly different, so difficult for us to give the different ways that's possible. But these are simple techniques in which you can use to just collate all this contact information that you have. And like I said, this is as you do it for yourself, get your team to do it, get your board members to do it, get family and close friends to do it. When you do this and it expands across your entire board and your entire network, I think that is when it becomes very interesting.
Trisha from Dream a Dream actually did this exercise recently. She's here to tell us how she took the NGOs list from about 1,000 email IDs to over 4,000. Over to you, Trisha.
Hi everyone, my name is Trisha. I work with Dream a Dream in Jayanagar in Bangalore. So I just wanted to give a brief rundown on how we built up our mailing list from nothing to about 4,000, which is where it is right now. So it was no easy task. It took a lot of work and a lot of digging. It really just started with the basics. So our leadership team is comprised of 3 members, our CEO, co-founder, and then our executive director. So I asked each of them to share their personal contacts with me. And through just their personal contacts alone, we got around 1,000 contacts for our mailing list. Then I moved to adding anyone that's ever volunteered with us before in the past to the list. I included board members, and then anyone who has ever donated before as well. So that means
Is from CMCA, and we would love to hear from Vinodni. They actually created a donor list in a very systematic way the first time round, following through a lot of the tips that you see in this presentation. So I'm going to ask her to speak about their experience of having created the donor list, what they're doing with it, and how it's helped them.
Yeah, thank you.
Over to
Thank
you.
you, Pavel. Yeah. So yeah, I just logged in like 5 minutes back, and I heard a bit of what the previous speaker was saying. And yes, I think we did pretty much all of that. So what we did was we have a whole team of volunteers, over 300 volunteers actually, who are part of CMC, an inherent part. So not all 300 contributed, but let's say the key people in Bombay and Bangalore who contribute to fundraising, and our senior management and trustees and so on, we asked them to give us their sort of list, their email addresses of all the people who they would approach, or who they have approached in the past, our previous donors, as the lady earlier said, anybody who's donated even one time to us, whether individual, corporate, whatever the amount. Then we put in well-wishers. They may not be contributors, they may not be donors, but they are well-wishers. They are people who can connect us to other people, perhaps, yeah, whether for our work or whether for fundraising. So both are important. Uh, in my case, I know, because I head fundraising in CMCA, I actually went through my whole email list, all the addresses I have in my address book. And I went through each one and said, okay, who should I send our mailers to? And I marked out each one. Of course, Dhaval told us how to export the list, and there was a lot of junk in that. And he also told us how to clean up that list. That was very, very important, because, you got all kinds of random addresses also. So cleaning up that list, which I will confess, I don't know personally, Dhaval, so you'll have to explain it, but somebody did it for me. That was very important, because initially I thought, oh wow, we have 5,000 people on our mailing list. But when I cleaned it up, it was a much better, more focused, maybe 2,000 or whatever it was. So yeah, there's no point saying I have 5,000 people on the mailing list if 3,000 people are junk and they're not going to get it, or they're not going to open it, and so on. But it's better to have that 2,000 who will read your email, and who will, maybe not every email, but even if they read 1 out of 8, I think it's good. Yeah. So that is what we did. And we asked all our volunteers to do likewise. Send us your mailing list, send us, all the addresses, and then we helped clean up and so on. So the thing is, as Dhaval said, reach out to everybody who reaches out to other donors, who can be a fundraiser, and see how they can help us, because their contacts should be our contacts too. Yeah. And so yeah, we did that. And the other thing that Dhaval said is to keep in touch with our donors and potential donors on a regular basis. And he and his team helped us start off our first newsletter with a very emotive content. And now we are just continuing it on a monthly basis. And I'm really happy to see, even this morning, Dhaval, I mean, this is, feedback for you. But somebody who I didn't even know was actually reading our newsletters, a contact of mine, has actually replied saying, I would like to contribute. Is there a simple way of doing it? So it's nice, when we get these, and I see nowadays every month when we send our newsletter, we are getting responses from, even if it is 5 people. I think it's great, because I know that as a receiver of newsletters, I don't actually respond, even though I may read it with interest and be happy to see the work. But I will say if I'm a receiver from another NGO, I'm not always responding. So it's really nice, even if we get 4 or 5 responses to a newsletter. Again, not everybody may donate, but the very fact that they are reading it and therefore we are top of mind. And then when I appeal for funds, they know what I'm talking about. And I don't need to sell all over again. So I think that whole exercise of asking everybody for their email addresses, cleaning it up and making it very tangible and real and focused, that helped. And the newsletter every month, very emotive content. So now, and now what we do is every time I write to a new individual, new corporate, whatever it is, a new partner, we automatically add all those people onto the mailing list. So yes, slowly it's increasing. And we know now it's very targeted, very focused. Somebody changes their job in a corporate world, we immediately change it. So yes, it's an ongoing process. It has to be, because it cannot be static. But yeah, it's been useful, extremely useful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vinodi. That was very lovely. Thank you for coming down and telling us about it. And I want to tell the rest of the rest of attendees. So CMCA, one thing I really like about their mailers now is not only do they have a story, but every mailer has a donate now button. This is something I don't see in all the NGO newsletters. I see it many times being missed out. So Vinodi, great job.
Thank you. You pushed us into it.
So, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your experience with everyone out here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right. Okay, great. We'll go back and talk about a little bit about what Vinodi do. We're going to try one more shot at that video. Namita, do you want to share it and see if you can play it?
Built up our mailing marketing to about 4,000, which is where it is right now. So it was no easy task. It took a lot of work and a lot of digging. I really just started with the basics. So our leadership team is comprised of 3 members, our CEO, co-founder, and then our executive director. So I asked each of them to share their personal contacts with me. And through just their personal contacts alone, we got around 1,000 contacts for our mailing list. Then I moved to adding anyone that's ever volunteered with us before in the past to the list. I included board members and then anyone who has ever donated before as well. So that means not only through Dana Mojo, but through any platform we've used in the past. So we've used Keto, Impact Brew, Small Change, NGO as well. So I went into all of our former platforms that we've used and downloaded all the contacts from those platforms. And then in addition, any individual donors that have donated via check or cash through Tally, I got their names and email IDs as well. Then of course I added all of the staff to the list. And I also incorporated our CSR Spocks to the list, although that was a little trickier because some CSR Spocks have really specific communications with certain Dream and Dream employees, so we kind of had to filter that list a little more than the other lists. And finally, we really hit the jackpot with our website. So on Dream and Dream's website, we have an option for people to sign up for a newsletter, but we hadn't been able to access where that information was going. So we were finally able to break into the back end of our website and get the list of everyone that has ever signed up for a newsletter online through our website. And that gave us about another 1,000 or so members for the mailing list. So in the end, we have a little over 4,000, around 4,100. And after sending out our first mail, we had an 86% successful delivery rate. So those are really great numbers, and good luck with creating your own mailing list.
Great, thank you. So I hope you all have got some ideas here from both Vinodini's talk with CMCA as well as Trisha from Dream a Dream, who explained to us how they went about creating their donor list. And we will, we have a few questions. I'm going to take a few of the questions now, and we'll take a few of the questions as they appear. So let's take that. So Vasumati has a question on, how do you clean up a mailing list? So there are two key things that need to be done when you're cleaning a mailing list. First of all, as you have created a mailing list, you need to see whether that email ID or contact detail is someone whom you would classify as a potential donor, right? If it's some automated email that you have got from your bank or from a service provider, then obviously that's not a potential donor. If you have, if it's somebody who will not give for sure, or if it's someone with whom you are angry or they are angry with you or something, best to avoid such cases. So one is just manually going through all the email IDs, all those contacts, and seeing whether a donor is a potential donor or not. If you don't know whether the person will give or not, assume they will give, right? Don't make an assumption that they will not give. So make that assumption and keep such donors. The second part in doing this, in cleaning up an email list, is actually ensuring whether the emails are valid or not. And there are various tools online which are available to do something like this. One of them is called bulkemailchecker.com. You can use that tool and it will tell you very quickly whether email IDs are valid or not. It's a paid tool, but it's very, very cheap. So you could try using that. I'm just going to put that for everyone in the chat box so that you have that information for email cleaning. So you can use this tool and it will tell you whether an email is valid or not. We've been using it for a really long time and find it very useful. So bulkemailchecker.com. It's one of many tools, many of them available. Another tool that is there is called MailMule. MailMule is also very cheap and is something that you can use to do that. So so that's one of the questions that's there. What are some of the other questions? Okay. Somebody's asking, is there something like donor fatigue? How can one deal with it? So we have Ketki asking, is there something like donor fatigue? How can one deal with it? Don't donors get a lot of emails requesting for funding support? I think donor fatigue is an excuse created by lazy fundraisers. You don't want to ask, you are scared of asking, so you have created this myth of donor fatigue. If you look anywhere on the web, you will find donor fatigue is a myth. We are very scared. Generally, we are very scared. We're not lazy really, but we're very scared to ask. We're worried if people will say no. And that's why we don't want to ask and we kind of say, no, there is donor fatigue. I think if you are mailing someone, at least one, and this is something we covered in our first session. If you are sending out mails even once a week, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. Once a month is the minimum that you should send. Anything less than that means you are not going to reach the donor. Remember, Vinodini said that every donor is not going to open every mail of yours. And out of 12 mails, honestly, if you send in a year and the donor sees 4 of them, you're lucky. And as a result of that, he's at least aware of what you as an organization are doing. Let it be up to him. If he feels it's too much, he'll unsubscribe. He's not going to get angry at you. He's actually going to, I know more donors who complain about the lack of communication from NGOs rather than over communication from NGOs. What donors are tired of is actually phone calls from NGOs. Often they experience that when they donate to one NGO, they get calls from other NGOs. And that is something that really puts them off with respect to the other NGO. More than just putting them off to the other NGO, it puts them off making donations in the first place. So that is something you want to be careful about. But I think email as a form of communication is a lot less non-intrusive and can be used to reach out. So I think that is something that you can definitely do. Manju's asked whether it's ethical to add people into your list without their consent, definitely it's not ethical. You should take permission. You can take permission. Wherever you're taking information, you can let them know that you'll be sending them communication. You can define the frequency of that communication. You can let them know whether it's once a month, whether it's once in 3 months. You can let them know that so that they can take a decision. Most and very importantly, with all emails, please have a unsubscribe at the end of it. I think the mistake that most organizations make is they don't have an unsubscribe. And as a result, people get very upset. So please make sure you have an unsubscribe. I don't think there is any other problem. Okay, so somebody wants to link Gmail and MailChimp. I think that's a bit of a technical question. We will link that offline with Zapier as well, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think we've gone through those questions. Let's go back to the presentation. We have a bit more left out there. So, Vinod brought about a very important point, maintaining your donor list and updating it, right? She talked about saying as people change jobs, their email IDs change, they update that, they remove the older ones, add the newer ones, change the one for whom it is, put in new donors into that list. Everyone she reaches out to, she adds on to that list, right? So this is very important to do, is to maintain a donor list. Now, many times, we don't maintain a donor list because we don't know what to do with that donor list. So I actually tell everyone that even before you think of a donor list, think about communication. Create a goal for yourself to communicate with your donors at least once a month, right? This is something we've been saying in the last 2 webinars as well. Please send out at least 1 mail per month. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be good looking. It can be a simple text mail as if you're writing to, one of your colleagues, but just something which summarizes what has happened in the last 1 month for the organization. What have you all achieved? And aim to send that out. Now, as soon as you have this 1 mail to send out, you will need a donor list. And that is why you are creating this donor list to send out this 1 email per month. The other important thing in a donor list, please make sure you at least have a donate now button, a link, even if you are not asking in the email. Because without that, there is no purpose to doing this communication. You also don't know whether it is working or not. You don't know whether it's working. So there was a question saying, is there donor fatigue? Should we be asking them? A lot of it is not about asking. It is about the story that you are telling them. And are you creating that sense within each of your donors to actually give back and want to give to you? That is what you are trying to create, right? So look at it as something that you're doing to create that sense. Cleaning your donor list, right? So we spoke about that already, removing duplicates, removing donors after a period of time if they are not responding. That's something you may want to do. Sorry, I think updating preferences, so we've talked about this. Vinodni mentioned this very beautifully. And repeating this exercise, right? This is not a one-time exercise of when you get the data. A lot of it is one time, but do you then have the system to ensure that as every new donor is donating, he's getting added to your list? As every new volunteer is coming in, he or she is getting added to the list. As you're recruiting staff, they are getting added to the list, right? You need to have what I will call a list manager, a person who is designated as a list manager in your organization, who will actually make sure that they are getting contact details from everywhere and anywhere in your organization, right? Where if you're doing some events, are all the attendees part of this, becoming a part of this list? If you're having visitors in your NGO, whenever you have them, are they getting added to this list? So make sure that this is a process which is once created. I think the first step to do it is one time, where you will get the real bump up. I am hoping you will go from less than 1,000 to more than 5,000 in the first shot. And then it's a process of continuously updating, cleaning, and collating. Seems like a lot of work. Honestly, it's not. Probably one day in a month after you've spent the initial time creating it list. So first time, yes, it will take you a lot of, it'll take a good amount of time. But after that, not more than a day in a month you will spend doing all this activity, right? So so you could try and do that. The next thing is, we're going to talk about champion fundraisers, right? So you have all these donors and you reach out to them, fantastic. But you can also, but there are donors who can't do more. They're giving things, but they can't give more, but they want to do more. What can you tell them? What can you do with them? So you can make them champion fundraisers. And what are these champion fundraisers? These are people who want to do more and can raise money for you, right? Some of them can be volunteers, some of them can help you in your work, but try and see how many of them can become champion fundraisers. Because we talked about, the second circle, the third circle, the fourth circle is really the circle of these fundraisers, is circle of your volunteers, circle of your board members. And how do you reach out to them? Many times your volunteers, board members may not be willing to give you these contact details because they don't know how you're going to use it, whether you will do it. But can you ask them to raise money for you and be a champion fundraiser? In that process, they will reach out to their networks and actually get donations and potential donors. So they will get potential donors for you through that process. And crowdfunding is a great way to make this happen, to get new donors. But new donors, not because you are raising money with your donor list. Remember that. You already have a donor list. If you go and raise money on a crowdfunding platform, that doesn't help. Crowdfunding platform is great when you're champion fundraisers, people who are donors to you, people who know your organization, people who are committed to your organization, volunteers, want to raise money. Provide them guidance. You have to provide them guidance. Everyone doesn't know how to raise money. So you need to raise money and then provide them guidance on how they can raise money. Support them with marketing material. Provide them organization updates. They need photos, they need videos, they need updates that they can put on that crowdfunding page. Your role is to provide that information to them and spoon feed them with a lot of information, right? Tell them what to post, tell them when to post, tell them how to reach out, tell them how to create lists. Obviously, for all of that, you should have done it first. So the first thing for you to do, if you have not done a campaign, is to run a campaign yourself, right? You as an individual, you as your personal network, not you as a fundraiser for your organization. You as your personal network, can you reach out and get your network to donate? And through that process, you will learn on what a successful crowdfunding campaign is all about, and use that experience then to create and manage champion fundraisers, right? I think these are the most important people that you can have who can help you expand your circle of donors and get new donors. So keep them well informed about the rules, keep them well informed about this work. So sorry, we've covered this part, right? So why is this important and who are champion fundraisers? They are people with large social networks. They're interested in your work and they care about the organization. They want to do something more for you. They want to act as your representative. They want to do something more, and this provides them a way to do that. Obviously, they're approachable, they're willing to listen to you, and they're ready to invest their time and effort. A lot of times you will find that you will have to actually push them a little bit, because this is not very common yet in India, right? To raise money for NGOs. And everyone requires the push the first time around, and you've got to be ready to push them. So try to make sure that that is something that that you're able to do. I'm going to use this thing to, yeah, so that's just, yeah, so one more poll coming up. How many of y'all have actually run a crowdfunding campaign? right? This is great, right? So we have more than 2/3 of y'all who have actually run a crowdfunding campaign. You've run a crowdfunding campaign, so you know what this is about. I think I should have had a follow-up question on this, is saying how many of you all have trained champion fundraisers to run for fundraising campaigns, right? And if you haven't, I think that's the next step for you, is to get people to actually run crowdfunding campaigns. Uh, so, okay, great. I have that question actually. Have you run a crowdfunding campaign with champion fundraisers? Have you got other people to run campaigns for you? Right. So yeah, so see, this is the difference now that we're getting. Most of you all have run your own campaigns or organization campaigns on crowdfunding platforms. But crowdfunding platforms are primarily meant to run champion fundraiser campaigns. That's from where you will get new donors. You will get donors who will actually be able to, who you can add to your mailing list. Because whatever donors you have, with them, you don't need to run a crowdfunding campaign. You can simply run campaigns and get them to your website and get them to donate. Right? So I'm seeing here, while 2/3 of, okay, I'm just going to end this and share results with you. So this is very interesting. 2/3 of y'all, when I asked y'all whether y'all have run crowdfunding campaigns, y'all have run it. But another 70% of y'all have not used champion fundraisers, which means y'all have run your own campaigns for your organization on crowdfunding platforms. That's not helpful. That doesn't help you to get new donors, because remember, the crowdfunding platform is not going to give you new donors. It's your networks or your champion fundraiser networks which are going to give you new donors. So you need to run these campaigns as through champion fundraisers if you want new donors. Once you get these new donors, they have to be added to your list. And then a process begins, which is very important. So here I'm going to talk a little bit about what that process is and why that is important. Just give me a second. I'm going to stop this. So once a donor actually comes up, right? So once you get, so when donors have given to champion fundraiser campaigns, they have given towards the person who has raised money for. That person is someone who is very cause oriented. The champion fundraiser, that is, the champion fundraiser, cares about you, cares about your cause, is part of your organization. But the donor who has donated is actually somebody who has donated because the champion fundraiser asked him money. They don't care about your cause, but they have donated. Can you make them care about your cause? Can you get them to care about you? And that is a sequence of donor education that you would begin with all new donors. This is a concept called as drip communication. Let me talk a little bit more about how you can educate donors over a period of time to become cause donors, not crowdfunding donors. Right? So I'm going to just So donor education campaigns should be done through what in marketing terminology is known as drip communication campaigns. Drip communication campaigns are basically campaigns that are sent on a periodic basis to donors. So as donors are added to your emailing list, you start sending them information about your organization, which helps them understand your organization better. The best part of such a campaign is you need to just create it once, and it's a sequence of email. What is a drip communication campaign? It's a sequence of emails, maybe 3 emails, 5 emails. We would roughly say a good number would be about 4 to 6 emails, which helps them understand your organization more. Because you want to convert donors who have come from crowdfunding platforms in and who have given because of the person asking them into a cause donor. And the reason to do that is because you want that person to keep giving to you year after year after year. Not just give whenever a crowdfunding campaign is run, not just give because the donor, that champion fundraiser asked to give. You want to do it because you want him engaged to your cause. And for that, you will need to educate this donor about your cause. So you can set up a sequence of 4 to 6 emails, maybe going out every week or every month, once every 2 weeks. Don't keep it too far apart, he'll lose context. But maybe going every week, going every 2 weeks to all new donors who get added to your list. Right? As a result, they will become a cause donor. And the best part about a cause donor is the average ticket size of a cause donor is twice the average ticket size of a crowdfunding donor, right? So while a crowdfunding donor gives about two to 2,500 on average, a cause donor on your own website will give 4,500 to 5,000 donors on 5,000 rupees on average, right? That's the reason why you want to convert some of these to cause donors. So there is a lot of benefit. Obviously, you'll get money without asking them again and again. You get money without the champion fundraiser asking, and you get more money, right? So there are, this is something you can do. Now you must be thinking, really, this is very difficult, but it's not. There are various tools available which allow you. Most email platforms, MailChimp, MailJet, provide ways in which whenever donors are added to the list, they can start off a drip email marketing communication campaign where a mail will go out to them at specific periods of time every month. So how does it help? And more importantly, what does it provide? So open rates for drip campaigns are 80% higher than single email campaign, right? That's the best part. It allows you, it saves time. You have to create it once. It's create once, use forever. Maybe once in a while, once a year, you just relook at that campaign and update it if you need to, right? It's always executed at the right time. Every donor gets the same sequence. It helps to introduce your organization and increases engagement. And because it's just one campaign that you create which will last forever, it is something that will help a lot. Now, what kind of campaigns can you use for this, right? So for these email drips, impact stories, how your organization started, why did the founder started, what is the mission, awards that you won, different projects, initiatives, testimonials that are there, media coverage that you've got, how they can get involved, how they can donate, how they can fundraise, any research case study regarding your organization, any stories about beneficiaries, right? Anything around this that you think will help the donor become a cause-led donor is what you would put out and do. Ideally, 4 to 6 campaigns spread out over the about 4 to 6 weeks, maximum 3 months. And what you can do is once you've gone through this thing, and if somebody has not even opened one email, maybe you don't want to include, you can remove them from your mailing list, right? They are not going to get engaged. Like Vinodni said, better to have quality rather than quantity. And during this time, if they have at least engaged with you by opening your email, not donating. It may be a little too early. It may take a lot more time because they just donated 3 months back. But at least have they opened your email and are they engaging with you? Could be a way that you may want to look at it, right? So going back to our champion fundraisers, hopefully many of you all will now want to have champion fundraisers. We're going to talk a little bit more about just one last thing around donor list segmentation. Many people have this question, do we need to segment? These are various different types. I will ask most of you all to have only 2 types initially, at least till the time you have 10,000 donors in your list. Have one of who is a donor, who has donated to you, preferably at least in the last 3 years, is what I will call an active donor. And someone who has not donated to you is a potential donor. Right? So everyone who is not an active donor becomes a potential donor, whether a lapsed donor, VIP donor, all that is okay. Have 2 segments to begin with, active donor and potential donor. Right? And with new donors, you can start your drip email communication campaign. So this is what you can do. So does it make sense? Is it possible to reach a list of 5,000 now? Is that possible? So now let me ask you this. How many contacts do you think you can reach now? Through all these new methods that we've spoken about, through all the champion fundraisers that we've had, how many do you think you can reach? So great to see so many people now thinking that they can reach more than 1,000 donors at least, whereas we had only one NGO which had 1,000 donors at the beginning of this webinar. But I'm glad that most of you all do believe that you all can get a list of more than 1,000 donors. So I hope you all will start down that list. One of the things that tends to scare us generally when we're asking donors whether they want to be part of a list, we're always wondering whether they will be, they won't be, and somewhere we're just very shy of asking, and that's why we don't add them to the list. So to that, my answer, as has been to everybody, is remember, you're not asking for donations for yourself. You're asking for donations for your work, for your beneficiaries. So be bold, be upfront, be honest, and be transparent. While your work does speak for itself, but sometimes it may not be enough, and you actually need to ask for donations. And to ask for donations, you need to know donors, you need to have a list. Each of you all have a list. It's important that you all are able to ask from it, right? So please reach out, and we hope that this is something that is useful to you and helps you get a lot more donors. Right? I think that's it from our end. We are happy to take questions now. If anyone has any more questions beyond the chat, please request for your mic to be unmuted, and we'll do that so that you can ask questions. Yes, Sonali.
Thanks, Dhaval. This was really very, very encouraging, and your work has always been very inspiring. So thank you for taking time out for us. My question is, when we are involving volunteers or interns in fundraising, is there any particular formality or any particular system that we need to generate? Because these are again, or an MOU that we need to generate with them. Because there is a lot of liability when we work with people like these. So is there any structure to that, or it depends on the way we want it to happen?
So what do you mean by liability?
Sorry. So when we're asking volunteers or interns to raise funds for us, they will represent us as an organization wherever they go. And there have been a lot of instances of fraud, or there have been instances of interns not representing themselves well, and that plays back on us very badly. So we do have a conduct per se, but is there any other structure or any other formality that we need to follow just to avoid any kind of complications?
So obviously nothing from a legal perspective that you need to, worry about. Beyond that, like you already have a code of conduct, I would, advocate a very strong training as well as a very strong process to prevent fraud. And that again depends on what your experiences have been, through which you will understand, what process or system would work well in the scenarios that you have seen. But beyond that, if you are using online mechanisms, for example, crowdfunding platforms, many crowdfunding platforms allow you to run campaigns together for all volunteers under one common umbrella, right? And you should be, negotiating on behalf of your volunteers with that platform to provide that, provide that setup, and then provide you with the donor list at the end of it. Anyway, your volunteers will require your documents to set, if you are already registered with that crowdfunding platform, then volunteers can anyway go and set up campaigns, and the money is anyway just going to come straight away into your bank account, so you won't need to worry about it.
Okay.
Right? Any other questions? I have a question from Mr. Sinha out here who's asking, can you allow champion fundraisers to set up their page accounts linked with our accounts? I'm assuming this is more with respect to Dana Mojo. So Dana Mojo is not something where is not a crowdfunding platform, as you all obviously know. It's more a way for you to collect donations on your own websites, and as a result, it is more about fundraising for the organization. So it is when organization is doing fundraising is when you use Dana Mojo. When individuals are doing fundraising, we advise you to use crowdfunding platforms. This is actually a very interesting topic, and we are planning a webinar separately on this as well to talk about when do you use a payment gateway and when do you use a crowdfunding platform. But we have one organization which has actually done this very interestingly. They have created pages for their individual fundraisers on their site, and they have integrated Dana Mojo, donation product for that particular fundraiser on that particular page. So what you can do as a workaround is you can have a page on your own site and integrate the Dana Mojo code for a particular donation product. Create one donation product for every fundraiser and integrate that one donation product on that page. And then that becomes a page through which the donors can, reach out to their networks, reach out to others, and raise money for themselves. So that's something that can be used. If you want to do it via Dana Mojo, that is something that you can use. What is the meaning of CSR SPOC? So CSR SPOC generally is single point of contact. So whoever, if you are getting CSR donations, you are interacting with somebody from that organizations. And beyond the company giving donations, that individual is also a potential donor to you. So we ask you to reach out to that individual and give donations. So that is something you can also work with. So Parul tells us that they've done it at Natasha and it's worked very well. Parul, would you be willing to talk to us about that? We'd love to hear from you. Parul, can you tell the rest of the team?
Hi, hi everyone. In fact, we decided to use Dana Mojo as, Dana Mojo's payment gateway for donations, and we had products as listed. We've got women entrepreneurs making products, and we decided, because they had had a very bad year this year because of the pandemic, we decided that we'll put up their products on one of our pages of women development, and we had some products listed out there, and shared that link with our donors, and they could go in and select that product option and use the Dana Mojo payment gateway. So that really worked out well for us. Apart from the regular donation options that were there, we created another page on the website and used it. So it worked out very well. It was professional, it was clean, it was easy for the donor to work. Yeah, the QR code bit we are still trying to figure out. Through the website, it works well, but as a QR code standalone, I think there are some glitches there. So that we need to still iron out with you all. Yeah.
Sure, please reach out to us. We'll help you resolve
Yeah,
all
I
of that.
have people who are helping me out with that. So that's really not a problem. Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much, Parul, for
Thank
sharing your
you. Thank you.
experience with us. I think the other advantage that you get when you do, the kind of thing that Parul did, is you can design the page in any way you want. You are not limited by the format of a crowdfunding platform or the mechanism. You can do it in whichever way you want, and make it in any format that you want, and that can also be something that is useful for you. But apart from that, you also have crowdfunding platforms. If you prefer that approach, that's another way to go. Right? Any other questions? Anyone else? No? Okay, great. Then thank you very much. I'm going to give it back to Namita. Thank you everyone for being part of this lovely webinar, and we look forward to interacting with you again.